Hey everyone, Michael here again. I wanted to do a quick video and talk about these rough country sway bar quick disconnects that I've had on the Jeep for about 3-4 years, something like that, maybe even longer. Time seems to fly by these days. I've had a pretty good experience with them, as you can guess, because they've been on the Jeep for so long. But there are a couple little design flaws that I wanted to point out that have caused some issues. And the first off, this is the passenger side set that I pulled off. The driver's side, as you'll notice, is missing the hardware. And the reason for that is, well, it fell off. I actually found this just this last Monday, just laying in there attached to its post. Now, the way that this works is that the actual sway bar link connects to the top. This ball joint here actually connects to the sway bar, and then this end connects to this post where the original sway bar connect would be at, which just slides through and is held in place by a spring pin. Now, the primary issues that I've had with this are that first off, it eats these for breakfast. I've gone through so many different sets of these over the years. The second of which is actually with this bottom pin. There wasn't really any good way to tighten them down. You're supposed to just stick a screwdriver through the hole here and tighten it down, hope for the best. The problem with that, of course, is any screwdriver that size is going to bend by the time you really start to torque these on. It does come with a nylock nut, but that didn't really seem to help, as they have a tendency to get loose and rattle around. So what I've done here, as you can see, is I've used the angle grinder and made a flat edge on each side. It doesn't seem to really affect the fitment in here. So hopefully I'll be able to tighten those on a little bit better. Which leads to the next primary issue that I have with these. One of the biggest design flaws, and I don't really think this is Rough Country's fault, because a lot of people use this whole setup. A couple of other companies manufacture or at least buy the same parts. A normal bushing, whether you use the two halves or the hourglass style, don't fit in here. The reason for that being, the hole here is designed to not need a sleeve, whereas these ones are actually designed in such a way that you have a sleeve. So in theory, I could drill this off, or cut this plastic. This is like a hard plastic bushing. It's not really, for all intents and purposes, a bushing. It's just a piece of plastic. It just dampens the noise between the actual link and the post. But something like this, if I had a drill press, which I do have access to one, I could drill out this sleeve to fit on this tightly, which I think I'm probably going to try, just for the hell of it. I mean, worst comes to worst, I end up replacing these because I cut the bushing off or whatever, but I feel like I could get much better performance out of it if I had a real bushing of some sort on there. Of course, these poly bushings are a little bit harder, so it'd be very similar to these when they were new, but at the very least, I would be able to replace these a lot easier. Now, the biggest issue, of course, that I've had is that the driver's side one, as you can tell by its lack of any hardware whatsoever, kept falling off. I lost the hardware. So, both sides are getting an upgrade to a nylock as well as some thread locker. So, Rough Country, I don't know if you guys produce this yourself or if you buy it. I tend to think that you probably buy it from somewhere. It's a pretty good design. The biggest thing I would recommend addressing are the hardware. And maybe in future variations put a flat edge, just large enough for a wrench to sit on there, on the lower post. Otherwise, there's not really much of an issue with the design. These little lock nuts don't really get loose, because of course there's not a whole lot of, it's mostly up and down action that it gets. Get your head out of the gutter, guys, I know what you're thinking. So it's not really, that bad of a design. A lot of other companies are starting to get into more experimental designs where they use like a spring inside of it that dampens certain types of road vibration even more. Would I like to try one of those? Absolutely, but I can't really justify the cost. of replacing something that A, already works, and B, is reasonably priced. So, yeah. In the future, would I like to try one of those? Absolutely. But at the moment, I can't really justify the cost. So, for now, I'm going to go try and put these back on tightly, and we'll see what comes of it. Alright, so I've got the links reinstalled. Well, as that, I took the liberty of replacing the actual bushings on the sway bar. Prothane actually started making one that fits this sway bar, so thanks, Prothane. A touch of red thread locker here, just to keep it from getting loose. That little space that I ground off gave it just that much more grip, and I was able to get it down nice and tight. Up top, a little touch of blue thread locker. Pretty much the same. One thing I did do is I put a washer on both sides, because over on the other side of this ball joint there's a small spot for, I think it's like a 3/16 inch open-end wrench. So you have to be able to stick that wrench in there, and I figured that just gives you a little bit more room for that. All in all, there's no slack in it, so hopefully that reduces the amount of noise. Basically, I've been driving this thing with the front sway bar disconnected for a week, and the complete lack of noise was amazing. Most of the noise that I get is on the driver's side post here, which loosens up pretty regularly. So hopefully the extra touch of red thread locker will help. You can also see I decided to tie up the latch for the spring pin, just to try and keep it up and out of the way. The big issue it has is gravity drops it down, and for some reason it gets chewed up, so hopefully like that it'll last a little bit longer. So that's been that. I guess in time we'll see how it does. Okay, so it's been about 2 weeks, and I just got finished checking these to see how they held up, to see if my changes did anything good. And over the last 2 weeks I've had the opportunity to drive this couple of trips. It actually got about 200 miles on one trip, or 175, somewhere in there. We also had some inclement weather, so I had to drive through water and all sorts of other stuff, mud, dirt, and everything held up really well. You can see if I try to spin this, there's no movement. Normally you can use that as a fulcrum and just sort of spin the joint any which way. It's not moving, so that's good. There's no play out of the sway bar in any other of the places where it used to have it. So that's a definite improvement. I would say, thumb up there. We'll see how it lasts in the long run. These pulley bushings help stiffen it up a little bit more too. But if you're not familiar with pulley bushing, just be aware they're gonna squeak. I'm already aware of that, so I kind of expected that. Everything seems good for the moment. We'll see how it holds up in the long run, but over the last 2 weeks, which is usually more than enough time for things to start loosening up, it's held up pretty well. So for now, I will sign off, and we'll see you next time.